Okay. First thing we're just going to do is everybody open the meeting. I'm Mark Beglane, the chairman, James Channing, associate member, Frank Dean, and Dan Plotkin, also associate members. First thing we're going to do is the minutes from our last meeting of June 23rd of this year. Has everybody reviewed those?
Yeah.
Do we have any changes or additions? If not, does anybody want to make a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
And all signify by raising your hand and saying aye. Aye. So it's unanimous. The next item on the agenda is the public hearing. We'll postpone on the election of officers, among ourselves. We don't even have a full board tonight, so, but then we'll take up the public hearing, case ZV 2022-3, petition for variance under East Long Meadow zoning bylaws, dimensional and density regulation table 3.2 for a 10-foot more or less relief from a 20-foot front yard setback at 46 Lombard Avenue, Assessor's Parcel ID 2B-18-91 in the Residency Zoning District, applicant Timothy McDermott, 46 Lombard Avenue, East Long Meadow, Mass. 01028. I just wanted to double check before we open the meeting and give the rules. Has the publication been done for this?
Yes.
What were the dates on the publication?
I'll have to look that up, sorry.
I just want to make sure we have the publication. And the notices also went out to the abutters? And it was posted?
Yeah.
Okay. Usually they give you back a tear sheet.
That was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I saw it. I saw one.
Forget the
But I
date.
just wanted to verify the date for the record.
I think I have the,
Okay. But it was published.
it was published in the reminder.
Okay, yeah. And well, I saw it in the reminder, and then it also was posted in Town Hall on the website.
Yep.
Okay. And meetings were sent out, certified mail, all the abutters within 300 feet.
Yes.
Okay. So before the meeting starts, Mr. McDermott, we normally have a 5-member board. We only have 4 members present tonight. In order to pass a variance in the normal case, you need what they call a supermajority, which would be 4 of the 5 members. Since there's only 4 members, you would have to have a unanimous vote tonight in order to pass. I'm going to give you the option of proceeding with the 4 tonight and hope that you meet the burden, or postponing it until we can get 5, so that because you get 1 negative vote tonight, you won't get your variance.
I'd like to proceed because I believe if it is going to be passed, it would most likely be a majority, or it would not.
Yeah, it has to be a supermajority, so it just can't be a majority. It can't be a 3-to-1 vote. It's got to be 4, because we have to have 4 out of 5 members vote. And when you only have 4 members present, that means all 4 have to vote, because the other people not being there, you need to get a 4 vote majority. So
What would be the next hearing date?
would be probably a month from now. It's usually the second Monday,
It would be August 8th.
August 8th. I won't probably be there, though, unfortunately, on August 8th, but
I would have the same circumstance. At least I'd be in person.
yeah.
I'd like to move forward if that's the case, if you don't mind.
That's fine. That's fine. So I'll just set the rules. Just whoever's going to speak tonight, just give your name and address before you speak. And I'll ask first for the petitioner, Mr. McDermott, to give his case. I'll ask anybody who's here in support, either online or in person, for their input and support. If there's anybody here in opposition, we'll ask for opposition. And if there's anything brought up in the opposition that you didn't address, I'll give you an opportunity to rebut and answer that opposition. Okay? If you want to proceed, Mr. McDermott, just your name and address, please.
Yes, thank you. Timothy McDermott. I live at 46 Lombard Avenue in East Longmeadow. And what I am applying for is a 10 by 10 structure on the front of my house, essentially creating an easier access into my home. Based upon the parameters, I have several family members who are semi-handicapped or require wheelchair accessibility. And one of my neighbors actually has a solution which had provoked this case, where they had built a staircase wide enough to put on a removable ramp. So currently the front of my house has concrete steps if anyone's driven by. And they're a little tilted only because they're wearing down into it. And there's a differential for the step. So it's more of a process. It's very narrow. So one of the things I was thinking of was building a wider ramp. But then in talking to some of my family members, they had suggested if they had a little more room to be processed into the home, have a bench or something else to assist them before getting into the home. The only other entrance I have is the right-hand side of my house, and it's very restrictive because it's so close to the property line of my neighbor. Currently, it has a deck entrance as well, and it enters into a very narrow hallway into my kitchen, and it's just causing a lot of issues. It's not as if no one can get into the home. This will just be a superior addition, which we're looking to do. And if you have driven down Lombard Ave, you'll notice that many houses, even though they're grandfathered in, have something very similar, probably for the same kind of reasons, easier access into the home. Currently, we, my wife, my two children, solely use the entrance on the right-hand side because of the issues from the front of the house. So I'm looking to build a 10 by 10 structure with a few steps coming down so that the car can be pulled into the driveway, walked up, and we'll have a 5-foot wide staircase so people can assist into the home before getting into the home and just make an easier access point.
You're going to install a ramp over the stairs there, with portable ramp?
There is a removable ramp. I'm open to ideas if that's a make or break. I have no problem doing that, but there's a removable ramp that can be used and removed,
Okay.
which would be stored right there as well.
And how many people would be using this, I mean, in terms of need to use a handicap sort of ramp in the house
So
currently?
both my parents are 75. My mother just received knee surgery. So both of them, when they visit periodically, they live in Vernon, Connecticut, about 35 minutes away. They try to visit as often as possible. And I have a brother-in-law who lives about a minute away in Springfield, who requires a cane and just extra help getting into the home. So currently 3. We also have friends, etc.
Okay. Now, is this structure going to have a roof, or is it just going to be open like a porch type thing structure?
Nope, it'll be an enclosed is what I'm trying to push for. The roof would teeter to the left and right and be tied into the current roof, not to exceed the height of our existing roof, just as a 4 or 5 pitch.
Okay.
This is probably a question for you, or maybe one of my fellow members of the board. He needs a variance for this?
Well, it's because I think he's putting a roof structure on it. It won't be considered, I guess, a porch. It's going to be enclosed, correct? It's not going to be open.
Well, my question is, I mean, it's already pre-existing and non-conforming lot, right?
It's a pre-existing,
So
non-conforming
doesn't he
lot.
just need a special permit to do an addition to come forward?
Well, I think one of the issues is what they get in, and that's a whole other issue, is whether you're increasing the non-conformity or not by doing this, and you're.
Well, you are.
Probably, yeah, well, that's why I think he's going for a
But
variance.
then you can find that it doesn't derogate from the intent of the bylaw,
No, so-
and
and I understand.
and that it's consistent with other stuff in the neighborhood. I don't know whether it is, but that would be an argument if I were you that I'd be making.
Well,
But what I'm trying to get at is that if it truly is a variance that you need, that's a hard thing for us to give you. just hard. Variances.
So one of the things I noticed when I looked at the house to your, looking at the house,
To your right, the
to your
white
right
house.
is closer to the road than
Right.
yours is. I went down Merline
Yeah.
and looked straight down. I don't know what the distance was, but clearly the house to your right looking, on Lombard Avenue, is a pre-existing house
Further
with the,
forward.
which is further forward than this, and usually they allow.
Where I mean, in my past dealing with issues like this in another town, if it was a pre-existing non-conforming structure and you were putting an addition on it that was consistent with other special permits that had been granted in the neighborhood, that doesn't, isn't more detrimental to the neighborhood than the pre-existing nonconformity already was, and I think you can make that argument, then I don't know why we can't grant you this under a special permit.
Well, I don't think it was non-conforming for setback, because
It
it
doesn't
meant
matter,
the
it
house
just has to
met.
be non-conforming in one area.
No, but usually when you're creating a new non-conformity instead of increasing the non, so in other
Oh, I
words,
see what you're saying.
if this house,
creating a new
you're creating a new non-conformity here.
The building
and part of-
inspector would have done a special permit
Right.
if he could have,
Right.
without us
All right,
talking.
that's what I was trying to
Yes.
figure out.
Right, no. We've
No,
had to
and
do.
what happened here was the steps are exempted from the requirements of the setback for zoning, so you can have steps within the setback
But you can't
line.
make it a structure
It's
over.
Right, doesn't, and now he's putting it in enclosed structure.
Yeah.
And one of the issues I have, because the zoning says you can build, if you have a house within so many feet, equal to the house, but I don't know that that house was 10 feet further to the road. Looked like it could be 4 or 5
5 or
feet.
6.
Yeah.
You know.
But I couldn't get out and measure it, but
Yeah.
I
But
looked
that
straight
really, that
down.
really isn't our role, with things like this, which I think, have a good chance of passing under the right circumstances. You need to do, maybe a little more homework. In other words, if somebody came in and said, applies our zoning law to what you're trying to do, maybe you can make a case for this. The other thing I'm wondering is, you don't have handicapped people living in the house with you, you just have them visiting.
Correct.
If you had handicapped folks residing in the house that had a placard for their vehicle, for example, maybe they're, I don't know how you deny that, at least in good conscience. I don't know how I would be able to deny that. But here you got something that's a little loosey-goosey. I thought you could get away with it but my chair here reminds me, being a lawyer, that my hunch was wrong. You really aren't supposed to create new nonconformities. So like if you already were non-conforming in your front yard setback, then we could make an argument that what you're trying to do doesn't really make that any more egregious than what's there to begin with, but it does, because there's no non-conformity in the front yard setback now.
Right. Only in that. He's not
That's the-
conforming
that's-
on the side
right,
yard
that's the
because of
problem.
the deck.
Right.
So if you truly, what you truly want to do is have a handicap ramp temporarily for your parents, you don't even need our approval for that, I don't think, because it's not a permanent structure. But I think what you're trying to do, based on the circumstances, I don't think you got enough meat in the argument.
Yeah, I was concerned, partly because of the houses. The other houses, I couldn't tell back, because it's hard to line.
The sight
It's an
line,
old, yeah, but I did
Setback
it.
in the front's 20 feet, right?
25.
25.
It's 25, so he's right on it?
Yes.
His house is currently right on the line, and porches are exempt from that, so you have
So
a
he's
bunch of
conforming in
homes.
the front, it's too bad.
Right,
You
well,
were
that's
not
the issue.
conforming in the front.
Then we
Maybe
could
you
have,
should, you did, you had this surveyed.
right. So, but the issue that I guess I had was a couple fold. This is an older neighborhood in the town, which looks like it was probably, there's houses that probably were built back in the teens and 20s, some of the original
A lot of
ones.
30s and 40s, this area.
Right. And then there were a lot of like the single family after, but there were like some two families and larger houses.
There was
And those look
everything.
to be pretty close to the street, even closer than these in terms of
What year is the zoning in East Long Meadow?
60 through 2 or 60, yeah,
So there's so many already non-conforming houses in this
in that neighborhood.
neighborhood.
And that was one of the concerns that I had was, the hardship is a little bit, but you do have it, clearly, yeah, it's residency zone, you have single, two-family, and some maybe three-family. I couldn't tell, didn't go through. But when I drove down Lombard, there were some houses that appeared, they weren't on the same side of the street. They were on the other side of the street, appeared to be even closer than his to the street.
Well, but the problem is he's conforming in the front. And
Right, and he's creating a
non-conformity
nonconformity here. And so now the question is, he's got to get a variance to do that. And the issue is the hardship here.
And setting.
It's clearly related to the structure because you can't build anything on the front of that house without, you clearly have something related to the structure that may create the hardship. I am a little bit concerned because there's nobody in the house that's handicapped here that anybody could say, hey, I want to build I want to put this nice structure on because I could have some handicapped people visit me.
As odd as it sounds, is handicap status matter? And is that?
Well, handicap can be, we've got this it's tough because you have this requirement under the law that you have to give accommodations.
Right. Is that Trump zoning law?
Well, that's the issue that I don't know that it's been done, but that is one of the issues that comes.
It's not written like that. It's kind of understood.
Well, no, it is written. You can't discriminate against it. It's
That's what I'm
considered
saying.
discrimination. My question is that governmental action to discriminate against somebody's handicap. But here,
You don't have a handicap.
that's
person living in the dwelling.
I think the biggest problem that I have is if there was a handicapped person dwelling in the unit and that was going to be necessary for them to access their home, that would clearly be a hardship. The problem I have in terms of just opening Pandora's box here, anybody could claim any addition. I may have a handicapped person come over someday and I'd like to make it easy for them to get in and out. It'd be hard to distinguish this case from that. I understand your parents are both elderly and need it. And I think it's in keeping with the neighborhood. I just don't know in terms of the hardship, whether we meet the hardship requirements.
And the other thing is this can be done without a roof over it.
Right. You could put a porch.
Yeah.
If you made this into a stair ramp that's open, I think you can have a roof on a porch that's exempt, but you just have to leave it open. And if it's opened as a porch, I believe they're exempt from our zoning ordinance.
Once you enclose it.
But once you would close it and make it into an enclosed structure, then it becomes part of the main structure and it's not exempt.
Now it would have to be something to a building inspector
Right.
to determine that, but that's not our say.
So, that would be if I were in your position, I'm not sure we meet the hardship, but we can continue it to see what the building inspector says. If you could come up with a plan whereby you would have it more like a porch that has a covering over it so that people are protected. It doesn't necessarily have to go all over the stairway, but at least the entryway would be
Maybe what you do is you
protected.
meet with the building inspector and say, listen, what can I get away with? What will you not push back on? Because I don't think you're going to get 4 votes tonight on this. So it's better if you withdraw
Or continue it to
continue.
find out what,
That way you can come back and give it another whack and not have to pay another fee or
right,
whatever.
well, that's what I'm
Right,
thinking. I don't
because
want
if we
you to pay.
deny you, you're done for 2 years on this. You can't come back for 2 years. So why do that? If you're really interested in trying to do it. I'd love to do it for you.
Yeah.
If we had a way to do it, I think this board is always predisposed to do whatever we can to, that's why it's a board of appeals. We try to find a way to help the aggrieved when we can. I don't see it here today.
Yeah, and we have to be careful because once we grant things like this, the next neighbor comes in and says, like, I might have a handicapped person come to my house. I need a grand entryway for them. And then we've opened a Pandora's box to say, how do we distinguish?
But
your case?
even so, we couldn't grant it. Your respect from that, there's not a basis to grant it.
Right.
Not enough for hardship.
Yeah, I think had you had the structure where the structure is and you had to put the ramp would be exempt anyways.
Right.
But I think you could probably put it on a porch type structure that's open with a roof. That would probably be exempt from the zoning requirements because stairways, like your entry currently, they're exempt from the zoning requirements. And like porches and things of that nature. That are, but once you enclose it, it becomes part of the main structure.
So if I had, let's just say like the stars aligned, I moved forward and the porch sequence would work and we continue to have pretty bad winters in New England. And would this be something I'd be able to revisit down the road to see if there is any additional hardship to enclose?
Well, I would have a real problem because nobody in the house is handicapped. And, you know, all of us at one time or other could have somebody who's handicapped come visit us, and we could use, if that was the reason we were giving it, was because I potentially have guests. I got a brother or sister, a mother or father who's handicapped and has a card and then needs to get in and can't get in. And, you know, they're not even in a wheelchair. I know going up in stairs is
Not an everyday occurrence.
Yeah, not an everyday occurrence.
You know, what I like to tell petitioners who run into this, and we had one just like this the last meeting, is if you really want to pursue this, you gotta hire somebody that can help you figure out an argument that we can accept. Whether that's a land use attorney or a civil engineer or a builder, somebody who can talk to the building inspector or consult the zoning laws and figure something out. We're not really supposed to sit here and figure out how, we're supposed to find a way to help you, but I don't like telling people how to do it because it's really not what because frankly, what do I know? I'm just a guy on the zoning board, you know, so I would encourage you to talk to somebody about this and explain what the problem is and ask them for some help. You know, there's a lot of lawyers who practice before the zoning board and boards in this town. Find out who they are. Talk to somebody about it.
I would start with the building.
I would
Start with the building inspector.
I'd see
Find
what
out
he would
do
accept.
without a cost.
He may say, listen, I'm okay, you know, with this. And that may be okay with you.
Yeah, that's actually how it started. I had a shed built in the backyard and it met everything without needing a permit, and I want to continue with this as well. And that's how I know that it would have been a failed permit and then going through the variance. And it's been treacherous because it's not a lot of hand holding to your point. A lot of it's kind of figure out on your own. So it's been a several month process. I don't want to say I've done any of this lightly. You know, getting everyone lined up at a busy time at the tail end of COVID and everything else.
If we do the hand holding and it doesn't go well, then you look to town officials or town, you know, what happened? You told me that if I did this, it would work. So we're kind of don't want to do that, you know.
Yeah, the
Plus,
accountability, yeah.
somebody else might say, well, listen, you helped that guy, you know, why won't you help me? We want to help you, but you've got to come to us with something that we can say, yeah, that comports with the zoning law. Yeah, we can vote for that and sustain any criticism. I'm happy to defend the decision I made on that because of this. And we don't have that tonight.
Correct, yeah. So even
Is continue it, talk to the building inspector to see if you could get away with some sort of a porch or some sort of a non-enclosed structure that could accomplish the width that you need, and, you know, to keep part of the weather off. I mean, I can't, because it's gonna be open, it'll be open to wind-blown storms. If you get a
correct.
blizzard, snow can blow into it. But, you know.
Sound like a good idea?
Yep, I do believe it's a good idea. I'd rather continue it than close it, so yes.
So what we'll do is,
I'll make a motion
I don't know,
to continue
the question is, I don't know whether we should continue it to the August meeting or the September meeting to give you time to talk to the building inspector.
Maybe September.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. That would give you, if you come up with a resolution with the building inspector, you can always withdraw the appeal. And because it's been posted, we'd have to vote on the withdrawal. But by doing that, you'd preserve your right to come back for 2 years because we haven't voted negatively on it.
There you go.
Okay?
Then, yeah, let's proceed with that. I would appreciate it.
So we'll continue it to the second Monday in September, which is, well, we couldn't do it on the first Monday because I believe it's, that's on Labor Day, correct?
September 12th.
September 12th, okay, so September 12th would be, it'd be at 6:30. Would the library be open at
I
that?
think the library is open.
Okay, so it would be at the library, there's hearing rooms at the library, and that's where it would take place. But I also want to, there's a neighbor who showed up tonight that I'd like to get his input.
Hey, Tim, this is Mark Ecker. I'm a neighbor of Tim McDermott's, and I just wanted to come and support him. I've watched him do a lot of work on his house, building a shed, and I know he's always been building, always doing his work up to code, and he has a lot of great plans for his house. He wants to re-roof his house, he wants to side his house, he wants to add new windows, and there's a lot of upgrades he wants to do, and been watching him work the last couple of years on his shed, and just, like I said, I'm here to support him.
Okay, well, thank you.
Very much.
Is there anybody else present at all here to speak, or? And anybody online?
No.
No? Okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to entertain a motion to continue this till 6:30 on September 12th.
So moved.
Second, all in favor, say yay and raise your hand. So we're going to continue this to 6:30 on September 12th, and then give you an opportunity to talk to the building inspector to try to come up with something that'll meet the code and meet your needs. You know,
Excellent.
it's some sort of a porch type structure, I think you'd probably get away with.
Whatever they come up with,
That's
Mark.
right.
Just so you're aware, Kevin, the building inspector, is out of the office, I believe, until next week. He's on vacation, just so you know.
There's a personal.
He's on vacation for 6 weeks.
House burning down?
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much.
Okay,
Thank you, Mark.
okay, thanks.
All right, are we?
Thank you. So now you know where the conference room is.
Couldn't have found it without you.
So,
Well, we just keep continuing them and kicking them down the road.
If he wants it enclosed, he does it to the side of the house. He sees how close that house is next to him, and that's how much he can have.
Did we motion?
Right, the other one's 20
Yeah.
close.
Oh.
25.
I made a motion to close, got a
Yeah.
vote on that
Vote,
motion.
second, all in favor, aye. We'll close the motion.